KC7 Target C.
Yeah, YouTube channel is at Math Videos by Mr. A. Make sure you subscribe so that way you know when new videos come out. Hit the notification button as well. I'll be making videos for Key Concept 6 through Key Concept 14 for Integrated Math 1 Core and Honors.
Number 13. Mark each diagram to determine which postulate can prove the pair of triangles congruent. Okay. So when we say postulate, we're talking about side, 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 side angle, side, or angle, side angle. Best way to figure this out is to mark up the picture. Also, I think it's a good idea to separate the triangles so that you can easily mark them and see what they have in common. Okay, that's a triangle on the left, triangle on the right. Now, one tick mark tells me that these are congruent sides. So I can put an S and circle it. Two tick marks tells me that they have congruent sides. So again, S, circle it. S short, obviously, for sides. And then before these two were separated, they shared this side in common. So this side right here and this right here should still be the same. So we already used 1 and 2 tick marks, we'll go with 3. And because they have the same amount of tick marks, that's information about congruent sides. Okay. So you look at the picture, each triangle should have 3 letters, 3 sides or 3 angles or a combination of them that are marked up, these do. So these are going to be congruent by side, side, side. Okay. Now, looking at the diagram for B, okay, same thing. Now this one looks a little bit tricky because we had 2 triangles here, but they were sort of merged together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate them. I'm going to pull them apart. So the one on the left is going to be like this. It has a mark here, has a right angle, Q, this will be R, and then P up here. Pull the one to the right, looks something like this, again, right angle, tick mark, S, R, and Q. Okay. One tick mark is information about congruent sides, so I can put an S, circle it. Now, this is not an arc, but this square right here tells me that it's a 90-degree angle. They both measure 90, so that's information about congruent angles. So I'm going to go ahead and put an A, short for angle. Now you notice before these 2 triangles were separated, they also shared this side and the bottom together, QR and QR. It's information about a side, so I'm going to put 2 tick marks on each, and then put an S short for side. These are going to be congruent by side, angle, side. Okay? And remember, for side, angle, side, the angle needs to be trapped. It needs to be located between the 2 sides. Okay? Number 14 is very similar to the one we just did. It says from the figures below, identify which postulate can be used to prove the triangle is congruent. Again, we're looking at side, 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 angle, side, or angle, side, angle. Okay. Just like before, what I suggest is to separate the triangles. So this is the one on the left. This is going to be the one on the right. Again, not perfect, but it knows so that when I start marking it up, I know what it is I'm talking about. Okay. 2 tick marks. 2 tick marks tells me that's information about congruent sides. Okay. Again, this is not an arc, but the square tells me that they both measure 90, so those are congruent angles. Before these 2 triangles were separated, they shared this side in common. So this side and this side are the same. They used 2 tick marks, they haven't used 1, so I'm going to put 1 tick mark, 1 tick mark. And it's going to be information about congruent sides. Okay. So these are going to be congruent by side, angle, side. Notice again, the angle is in the middle like it needs to be. Right? This last one, again, separate the triangles. So we have 1 arc, we got 2 arcs, we got 3 arcs. Triangle to the right, 1 arc, 2, and 3 arcs. 1 arc and 1 arc right here is information about congruent angles. Okay. 2 arcs and 2 arcs is information about congruent angles. Now, the 3 arcs and the 3 arcs tell me they're congruent angles, but angle, angle, angle is not one of the ways to prove triangles congruent. So we need a different piece of information. Before these triangles were separated, they shared that side. So this side and this side are congruent. So we're going to go 1 tick mark, 1 tick mark. Put an S for congruent sides, put an S for congruent sides. These are going to be congruent by A, S, A. Number 15, find the value of x. Okay. Now, x is right here. Okay. If we need to find the value of a variable, that means we need to set up an equation. So we're going to set up an equation. We need two things that are equal to each other. Now, the temptation here will probably be to set 4x equal to 28, which would be correct, but I want you to know why that is. Okay. So if we look at these two triangles, I'm going to separate them like I've been doing. So we have the one on the top looks something like this. We're told that this one is 27 degrees. The one on the bottom looks something like that. Again, not perfect, but enough where you can get the point. Okay, so if we mark that picture up, this angle right here is 27, so one arc. This one's 27, one arc. That's information about congruent angles. Okay. Now we do have 90-degree angles here and 90-degree angles. I'm not going to mark those up because I don't want to prove this by angle, 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 because that's not one of the methods. Now we know that the three interior angles of any triangle add up to 180. So I can take this 90-degree angle, add it to 27, and then whatever that is, subtract it from 180. Okay, which should give me, if I'm correct, this should be 63, which means this one should be 63 as well. So that's information about more congruent angles. So I'm going to go ahead and put two arcs, an angle, two arcs, an angle. And then before the triangles were separated, they shared this common side. So this side right here and this side right here are going to be congruent. So one tick mark, one tick mark. Information about congruent sides, information about congruent sides. So these two triangles are actually congruent by angle, side, angle. Okay. Now that we've proven that they're congruent from the postulate angle, side, angle, then you can make the argument that sure enough, this side right here must be congruent to this side. And if they're congruent, that means they're equal to each other. So you can set up the equation 4x equals 28, where the only step in order to solve x that's needed is to divide both sides by 4 to undo the multiplication. Turns out x is going to be equal to 7. Final answer. Number 16, fill in the reasons for the proof below. Okay. Before we do all that, I'm going to go ahead and separate the triangles because I know I'm going to have to probably mark them up. And I strongly suggest doing this because you'll see it's much easier to fill in the proof when you have the diagram and the pictures marked up to prove what it is you're saying. Okay. So you should always start a proof of what's given. We're given these two pieces of information, so go ahead and put that as statement number 1. And we know all that to be true because it was given to us. Okay. Now, first statement, Vx is congruent to Zy. Vx is located right here, so I'm going to put one tick mark and S because we're talking about sides. Zy, a tick mark and put an S because we're talking about congruent sides. The next piece of information, angle XVY is congruent to angle ZYV. XVY is really angle V, so I'm going to put an arc and put an A for an angle. It's congruent to ZYV. ZYV is really angle Y, so again, put one arc, put an A because it's information about congruent angles. Okay. Now you'll notice that each triangle only has 2 letters circled, so each triangle has 2 pieces of information. We need a third one. They give us a third one. They tell us that VY is congruent to YV. So here's VY. It's about a side, so 2 tick marks, put an S. Here's YV, 2 tick marks, here's an S. And the reason we're talking about that one is because that's the side that both triangles share before they're separated. Now, if you notice, if you put a line down here, it looks like it's been reflected, right? So the reason they're congruent is because of reflexive property, which basically just says something is congruent to itself. So that side that they share in the middle, once we separate it, it's still going to be congruent to itself because it's the same side. And then you should always end the proof of what it is you're trying to prove. So that's our last statement. Keep in mind the last reason will never be just the word proof. So if we look at the diagram here, it's going to be side, angle, side. Okay. And the angle is in the middle. It's created by the 2 sides like it's supposed to be. (17) Using the diagram below, determine the distance from y to x and x to z. Also, justify which is a shorter distance. So let's start with y to x. Y to x is right here. So we need to calculate that distance. Okay. Now, y to x is what we would call a mid-segment, which is basically 2 midpoints connected together. Now, A midpoint takes a line segment and it cuts it in half into 2 equal pieces. That's why you notice here there's 2 tick marks, 2 tick marks. It's because X was the midpoint and it divided it into 2 equal pieces. Y is also a midpoint. If you see here, 1 tick mark, 1 tick mark. So it took that line segment and it created 2 equal pieces. So a mid segment says that it's going to be half the length of the opposite side, or in this case, the base. So to find half of 19, we're going to have to take 19 and divide it by 2, which is going to give us 9.5. And because they gave us a unit of measurement, inches, we're going to go ahead and put inches at the end of this. Okay, so that's the first distance. Now we need to calculate the distance between X to Z. Here's X, here's Z. They want us to calculate that one. Now, if you look at the picture from top to bottom, it's 14 inches. But because X is a midpoint, it created 2 equal pieces. So if you had 14 inches and it was cut into 2 equal pieces, you're going to have to take 14 divided by 2. So X to Z is going to be 14 divided by 2, which is just going to give us 7 inches. Now, we still need to answer the question, which one is the shorter distance? So comparing the two, obviously X to Z is a shorter distance. Number 18, find the value of K and show all your work, right? Here's K, so we're trying to find that top angle. Now, we're given all the information that we need in this diagram. First off, we're given a triangle that has 1 tick mark on the left, 1 tick mark on the right, which tells me that those 2 sides are congruent. If I have a triangle with 2 congruent sides, that tells me that what we have is an isosceles triangle. Okay? In an isosceles triangle, we have 2 congruent sides. We also have 2 congruent base angles. Okay? And base being basically the side that it sits on. So the angle on the left and the angle on the right should be exactly the same. Okay. Now, here we have a straight angle that measures 180. It's created by angle N and by angle 99. So in order to find N, I can take 180 minus 99. Okay. Can't do 0 minus 9, so take 1 from the neighbor. 8 becomes 7. 0 becomes 10. 10 minus 9 will give you 1. We cannot do 7 minus 9, so again, take 1 from the neighbor. The 1 becomes 0, the 7 becomes 17. 17 minus 9 is going to go ahead and give us 81. Okay, so we know the angle N must be 81 degrees. However, again, this is an isosceles triangle, so both base angles have to be identical. So we go ahead and say, all right, W must be 81 degrees as well. Now, we still need to find the top angle K, but the 3 interior angles, K, W, and N of any triangle should always add up to 180. So we're going to go ahead and add the bottom 2. We're going to take 81 plus 81. That's going to go ahead and give us 2, 8 and 8, 16, so 162. So then finally, to find angle K, which is what we really want, we're going to take 180, which is what all 3 angles should add up to, and subtract the bottom 2, which was 162. Okay, can add to 0 minus 2, so we take 1 from 8, 8 becomes 7, 0 becomes 10, 7 minus 2 becomes 8, 7 minus 6 is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0. So the final answer is going to be K equals